ವಿದ್ಯಾಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದ ನವರಾತ್ರಿಯ ಉತ್ಸವ ಮೊದಲ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭವಾಗಿದೆ ಎಂದರೆ ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎರಡು ಮಾತಿಲ್ಲ. ಸಭೆ ಕಿಕ್ಕಿರಿದು ಸೇರಿದೆ, ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಅಮೋಘವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭವಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಮೋಘವಾದ ಈ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಗುರುಗಳಾದ ವೀಣಕ್ಕನವರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ತಮ್ಮ ಕರತಾಡದ ಮೂಲಕ ಧನ್ಯವಾದವನ್ನು ಕೇಳಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಮೇರುವಾದ ಹಿಂದೂಸ್ತಾನಿ ಸಂಗೀತ ಕಚೇರಿಯನ್ನು ನಡೆಸಿಕೊಡಲಿರುವ ಪಂಡಿತ್ ಶ್ರೀ ಶ್ರೀಪಾದ ಹೆಗಡೆಯವರು ಈಗ ಬಂದು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಸೇರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಸ್ವಾಗತ, ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಭರತನಾಟ್ಯದ ಧ್ಯೇಯವನ್ನು ಸಾದರಪಡಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಹೇಳುತ್ತಾನೆ, ಧರ್ಮ್ಯಂ ಯಶಸ್ಯಂ ಆಯುಷ್ಯಂ ಹಿತಂ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ವಿವರ್ಧನಂ ಲೋಕೋಪದೇಶ ಜನನಂ ನಾಟ್ಯಮೇತದ್ ಭವಿಷ್ಯತಿ. ಈ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಗುರುಗಳಿಗೆ ಧರ್ಮ್ಯ, ಯಶಸ್ಸು, ಆಯುಷು, ಹಿತ, ಬುದ್ಧಿ ವಿವರ್ಧನ ಮತ್ತು ಲೋಕೋಪದೇಶವನ್ನು ಕೋರುತ್ತಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆರಂಭಿಸೋಣ. ನೀವು ಗಮನಿಸಿದರೆ ಇಂದಿನ ಎರಡು ಕೊನೆಯ ನಾಟ್ಯಗಳು, ಒಂದು ಚಿದಂಬರಂ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಲೆಗೊಂಡ ನಟರಾಜನ ಬಗ್ಗೆಯದ್ದು, ನಂತರದ್ದು ಜಗನ್ಮೋಹನ ಕೃಷ್ಣ. ಇವೆರಡನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಹರಿಹರರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಶ್ರೀ ಅಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ದೀಕ್ಷಿತರ ಒಂದು ಶ್ಲೋಕ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕವಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. ವಸ್ತಾಂ ವಿಷಂಗಂ ವಸನಂ ದಿಶೋವಾ ಗರುತ್ಮತಾ ಯಾತು ಕಕುದ್ಮತೋವಾ ನಿದ್ರಾತು ವಾ ನಶ್ಯತು ವಾಧಿರಂಗೆ ಭೇದೋ ನಮೇ ಸ್ಯಾತ್ ಪರಮಸ್ಯ ಧಾಮ್ನಃ. ಪೀತಾಂಬರಧಾರಿಯೋ, ದಿಗಂಬರನೋ, ಗರುಡ ವಾಹನನೋ ಅಥವಾ ನಂದಿ ವಾಹನನೋ, ಶ್ರೀರಂಗಧಾಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಗನಿದ್ರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮರಗಿರುವವನೋ ಅಥವಾ ಚಿದಂಬರ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ತಾಂಡವವಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವವನು, ಯಾರೇ ಆಗಲಿ ಆ ಪರಮಧಾಮನಾಗಿರುವವನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಭೇದವಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಭಗವಂತನಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. ಮುಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇಂದಿನ ವಿಶೇಷ ಅತಿಥಿಗಳನ್ನು ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ದ ವ್ಯೂ ದಟ್ ದ ಆರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಡೊಮೈನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸೇಕ್ರೆಡ್ and that there is a connection between them is given most clearly in a famous passage in Vishnu Dharmottara Purana. There is a Purana by name Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, in which sage Bhagavan Markandeya instructs the king Vajra in the art of sculpture, teaching that to learn it one must first learn painting, dance and music. Listen to this carefully. Vajra, King Vajra approaches Bhagavan Muni Markandeya. Vajra asks, how should I make the forms of gods so that the image may always manifest the deity? This is a small story. I will just quickly go through that. Markandeya says, he who doesn't know the canon of painting can never know the canon of image making. Because to build anything, you have to first do the drawing. Chitra Sutra is important. Vajra then asks, explain me the canon of painting. Markandeya says, it is very difficult to know the canon of painting without the canon of dance, Nritya Shastra. For in both, the world is to be represented. It needs to be represented in drawing and is in Nritya. Vajra says, then explain me that. Markandeya says, dance is difficult to understand by one who is not acquainted with instrumental music called atodhya, instrumental music. Vajra then requests the atodhya be taught. Markandeya says, without vocal music, Gita, it is not possible to know instrumental music. Vajra then says, explain me the canon of vocal music. Markandeya says, the vocal music is to be understood as subject to recitation that may be done in two ways, prose, gadya, and verse, padya. So imagine where it is going. So the story doesn't stop here. Bhagavan Markandeya ಮುಂದುವರೆದು ಸಂಗೀತ, ಗದ್ಯ, ಪದ್ಯ, ಛಂದಸ್ಸು, ವ್ಯಾಕರಣ, ಅಕ್ಷರ ಸಮಾಮ್ನಾಯ, ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಓಂಕಾರದ ಜ್ಞಾನದವರೆಗೆ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆಯವರೆಗೂ ಕೊಂಡೊಯ್ಯುತ್ತಾನೆ. ಇದರ ತಾತ್ಪರ್ಯವಿಷ್ಟೇ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಗಳ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಅವಿನಾಭಾವವಾದದ್ದು, ಪರಸ್ಪರ ಪೂರಕವಾದದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ ಅಮಾಂಗ್ ಅಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಈವ್ನಿಂಗ್, ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಸಹನಾ ಜಿ, who is going to deliver a guest talk on Kala-based education, key to a vibrant future. Sahana Singh is an author, commentator, currently based in the United States. She is an environmental engineer by qualification who writes on variety of issues including Indian history, water management, and education. Her first book, The Educational Heritage of Ancient India, How an Ecosystem of Learning Was Laid to Waste, has been appreciated for awakening Indians to the role played by India in spreading the knowledge around the world. Her second book, titled Revisiting the Educational Heritage of India, published by Vitasta, explores in greater depth the subject of India's unique ecosystem of learning, which created a knowledge-centered society and laid the foundation of the major academic disciplines being pursued today. An alumnus of Delhi Technological University, she made a career shift to writing after she moved to Singapore. She worked as an editor of Asian Water magazine for many years. Sahana Ji has won several awards for journalism, including the Developing Asia Journalism Award in 2008. A short animation video made by her on the world's water crisis won the top prize at the TU Delft Urban Water Movie Contest awarded by Delft University of Technology in Netherlands in 2012. Her articles have been published in Reader's Digest, Washington Post, Discovery Channel Asia, Asian Water Magazine, Swarajya, India Facts, and other publications. She has also moderated many panel discussions on water management at several international conferences. Sahana Ji is on the board of many non-profit organizations related to history, heritage, education, restoration of samskara, and to the cause of helping Hindu refugees. She is passionate about traveling and connecting the dots across different societies, civilizations, and disciplines. Ellakkinta dodda heggalike, Sahana Ji is from Namma Bengaluru. Over to Srimati Sahana Ji for a talk on Kala-based education, key to a vibrant future.
ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಮಾರ್ಗಸೂಚಿ ಇದೆ. ಶಿಶುವಾಟಿಕ, ಕಪಿಲ, ಗೌತಮ ಮತ್ತು ಭಾರದ್ವಾಜ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅವರವರ ಪೇರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಲಂಟಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕಾಗಿ ವಿನಂತಿ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು 8 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೂ ಆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ವಾಲಂಟಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಸೇಫಾಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಸಂತೋಷದಿಂದ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಲಂಟಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡಿ.
Namaskar to everybody. Namaskara. It's absolutely wonderful to be at Vidyakshetra's annual celebration. And also, I mean, it is a spectacular start to Navaratri for me after a long time. And I must say that Vidyakshetra has a very, very special place in my heart, which I think people can make out. And if I tell you the story, there is Shripad Anna sitting right in the left over there. He is the one who connected me to Vidyakshetra. So he had come to my book launch in 2021, where my second book was being launched. And he waited patiently for everybody to talk to me. And then he came and said that he had been influenced by my first book. And he wanted to join some Gurukula and help out there. And that's how he had joined Vidyakshetra. And he asked me to visit. So that made it very interesting for me, because this is my chance to see a Gurukula in action. And so that's how I went, followed him when he took me there. And that's how I came in contact with Muni Ji, Preeti Ji, Biswak Singh Ji, and others. And I must tell you that you all have rescued me from depression. So, you know, it is despondency, gloom, and depression. Because writing that book, the first book that I wrote, even the second book, of course, I was inspired by what all we have achieved in the past. That we were the great center of education. You know, the best students used to come and study in India. They acquired an education, went back, and we were attracting the best students. We had science, math, arts, everything. We were the leaders in education. And then I'm looking at what we are today, and I was getting depressed. So, and at that time, I remember that a lot of people wrote to me and said, Sahana Ji, we would like to, we are not happy with the education system. We want to send our children to Gurukulas, like the ones you mentioned in your book. Now, they are asking me to suggest. I said, I don't know. I have to myself find out. And then comes this Sripada, takes me to Vidyakshetra. And the moment I met both of you, Preeti Ji and Muni Ji, I felt like I've come at the right place. There is hope. So that sense of hope awakened. And yeah. So that's how I am totally in the journey with you. So Uh, During my research, one of the things that I came to know is that it's not just the invaders who came and destroyed us, the British came and colonized us. Yes, that's all true. But if you look back and see, there was a demand from the people of India themselves for Western style education. So if you go back and see, the Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one of them who is well known. He wrote a letter saying that, asking the government of the British government that they should not fund another Sanskrit school. Better we have science education, maths education. We have had enough of Sanskrit education. Actually, he was echoing the thoughts of many people at that time. Now, of course, today in hindsight, we can blame them, but if you imagine yourself at that time, what it was, we were totally impoverished. We were impoverished because the British government had made sure the trillions of dollars, we are still counting, we still cannot say, somebody says $45 trillion, even that seems too less, because they made sure to destroy the industries of India. They completely destroyed it. There's a story that they cut off the thumbs of those who were the artisans. Some people say it's a rumor, but I actually think there must be some truth to it. And they made sure that the whole textile industry, India was dressing the whole world. If you look at the beautiful gowns that the Europeans were wearing, you find that it has come from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, from all over India, Gujarat. Fabrics were going. They were going to even America. Even the slaves in America were wearing the calico that came from India. That industry was destroyed by Britain. And of course, they destroyed the education system also. If you get my book, you will get the whole sad story of how that happened. And so at that time, there was a demand that we want English education. We want to be like the Europeans. So we want to study European science. And maybe then we can be on the same table with them. So that's how we went into that path of destruction, you can call it. We were enslaved, we became even more enslaved. Once, because earlier we were poor, physically poor, we became mentally poor as the years went by when we went. And it's ironical because to me it feels like we were running after a candle when we had the legacy which was like the sun. We had the sun on our side and we were running after the candle. So that's what happened. Now today, of course, we have enlightened people like Muniji and Preeti Ji who know that we have to bring back that ancient system of education, and they are thinking of how we have to do it. It's not easy. We are living in a totally different world. The ecosystem has changed because at that time, everybody used to do dana. So it was considered a big punya to give to educational institutes. So all over India, people were donating to temples, and the temples were also running schools, and then teachers and students were respected because it was understood that they had to make a lot of sacrifice to study for so many years. So the whole society was supporting scholars, and in this way, knowledge was being propagated. So that was it. And now that system is gone. We have a system where we have to pay to be educated. It's a profession. And in this scenario, we have these two brave people who have embarked on this adventure to set up Vidyakshetra, and it is doing well. We are seeing, I'm seeing a whole hall full of parents and teachers, and I know there's a waiting period. A lot of people who want to join Vidyakshetra are not able to get admission, so they have to wait until they can get a chance. So that gives me a lot of hope. And now I come to the topic of today, which is Bharatiya Kala-based education, the key to a vibrant future. So you would have realized, I'm probably preaching to the converted, that the mainstream education system has very little art in it. That's the one which I got educated in. And of course, we know in our tradition, there were 64 Kala. There were the 64 Kalas that were a part of the education system, and people had to, I'm not sure though, I need to find out whether people really studied all the 64 Kalas. It seems to me like several lifetimes will be needed, but I'm sure they got a basic idea of all the Kalas. Probably that was being done. And so when I was in my book, I have actually a chapter in which I've listed all the 64 Kalas. And when I was listing those Kalas, I was filled with a sense of wonder. Every conceivable skill seems to have been put over there, okay? And what I noticed is that there are one set of Kalas which are related to beautification. So beautifying the person and beautifying the surroundings. So they are totally focused on that. So it had I've written it down because I'm not going to remember this. The art of hairdressing, the art of doing makeup, the art of making tattoos or beautiful tilakas. Okay, all this is part of the 64 kalas. The art of making ear ornaments, the art of dressing up. Then, of course, the musical arts were extremely important. So there was this vocal singing, instrument playing, all that was part of it, producing music from drums, things like that. Then there was painting, architecture, interior decoration, wood carving. So this is all beautification of the place that you are in. Making beautiful rangolis. This was something that you had to learn properly, formally. Arranging the bed, decorating the house, making garlands, flower garlands, right? All this was part of 64 kalas. Then there were intellectual arts. And when I look at these intellectual arts, I'm left wondering, remember, even the women were studying all this. So it includes the art of deciphering a code. So if you're given a code, you have to decipher what is it saying. That's one of the kalas. Knowledge of dictionaries. So, they were playing games even with dictionaries. So how many words do you know from the koshas? So that was also one of them. The art of composing verses instantly. So you are given a topic and you have to compose a verse. So that was one of the kalas. Art of prosody, that is chandas, the pattern of rhythm and sound. The art of completing an incomplete poem. So you're given a part of a poem and you have to finish it. So imagine, these are the kind of things that we were all learning. Knowledge of languages. So just one language was never enough. You had to know 2 or 3 languages. That was also a kala. The study of drama. And then the modern day Antakshari that we play, that also has its origin in the 64 kalas, right? It has come from a kala called Pratimala, in which, in those days, of course, there were no Bollywood songs. So there would be a shloka or a bhajan you would sing, and the last letter of that would be the starting point for the next shloka or bhajan. So imagine they were having a high-level Antakshari, and today what we have done with it, right? Then there was cooking, needlework, weaving, what have you. Mind-boggling array of arts. So that's why I wonder how one person could have been good in so many arts. But what we hear is the Ganikas, especially the Ganikas who were in the Maurya period. They used to know all these 64 kalas. That was one of the qualifications for them to become Ganikas. And the Ganikas, loosely some people call them prostitutes, but they were not prostitutes. They were actually very accomplished people who were assisting the king in administration. And they were also sometimes used in espionage. And in fact, one of the things I remember about these 64 arts is that in the Kama Sutra, it says that it's good for women to learn these 64 arts, because if unfortunately a day comes when their husband dies or they are left to fend for themselves, one of these kalas will help them to survive and live a comfortable life. So you can imagine. So in those days, it was very much used for livelihoods. Now, when I think of my education, I feel that I have been very, very deprived. So there was, as Muniji said, science, maths, that was the biggest focus. And if I get the highest marks in science and math, my job is done. That's how I lived my life when I was studying. So there was no music. Music would be for those who were able to do good in studies and then still have time to go for extra classes for music. It was always outside the school. So those who studied dance, music, and I used to pity them that, they are going to now get into a bus and go so far to go and learn all these things. I have not taken all these things. I am just good in my studies, and that's good enough. That will get me a job. So in those days, that was how I was thinking. But luckily, I have a mother who loves music. And that is how, even though I never learned music, she was always talking about it. She was making me listen to sitar, santoor. And so through her, I developed a liking for it. And I found it very surprising that it could take me to some different world. So at that time, I didn't know that I was actually getting into a meditative state. So if you're listening to a raga from beginning to end and you just put yourself in it, then you are in a meditative state. I didn't even know that I'm actually in that state. But today, when I know more about this whole thing, I feel that that this is what I should have cultivated more. I should have gone. I was already into it so much. I was enjoying it. No, it would have not taken much effort for me to go to learn. So that's why I'm envious of all these students who are studying here. Vidyakshetra. It's part of their curriculum. It's so integrated. And as he said, it's not some side subject. It is not a co-curricular subject. It's a core curriculum. So this is what I envisioned, and I'm seeing it here. So, as the moderator mentioned, in our civilization, art is sacred, and when it is done in the proper way, it actually leads to moksha. This is something that I have heard some Swamijis also telling me. It's very interesting that, that music especially can actually lead you straight to moksha. So if you keep practicing music over a period of time very sincerely, then moksha is actually very much assured for you. You're on the path compared to the harder method. I used to think that moksha is very hard to attain. You have to go through various penance and everything. So what it has been mentioned in some texts that, that this is possible. So one I came across was the Sangita Ratnakara, which is written by Sharanga Deva, where he says, he is the one who said that music takes the form of the universe, the Nada Brahman. So he says that when you are worshipping Nada, then you are worshipping Shiva, you are worshipping Vishnu, you are worshipping Brahma. So you are literally worshipping Bhagwan. So when you do the sadhana of music, you are getting into the path of moksha. And then this is repeated by Tyagaraja also in one of his kritis. And then there is Yajnavalkya Smriti also, which says that the practice of music leads one to moksha or liberation without strain, that is without going through the rigors of yogic discipline or the path of jnana. So just imagine, and that's why I say in Vidyakshetra, they are giving you the path to moksha. They are not just giving an education, they are teaching them how to attain the highest. So this is amazing. Now, of course, there are many other kalas also. There is Bharatnatyam, Shastriya Sangeet, that, in Vidyakshetra, they are giving attention to not just music and dance, various other kalas. I have seen when I visited last time, there was the weaving has got more advanced, the loom has got more advanced, the building has got more advanced. Earlier, there's a whole building now that has been constructed by students in which the loom has been kept. So you can see that different arts are now developing, they're flowering. And more students are getting into studying all this. And it was very heartening to learn from Maniji that people are now asking more about the kala, that my child is not practicing enough. So you're already achieving that paradigm shift in the minds of the people. Now, I feel that when we are embedded in the arts, then it leads to an appreciation of beauty. So if you look at the structures which are built by the ancients, you'll find that the level of beauty in them is something different. So, when I was visiting Jammu recently, I had gone for the Y20 conference, and I wanted to see the Baolis, the water bodies where the water is stored. And so in those times, they would not just dig a pond and store water in it and leave it. What they would do is they would decorate they would make a panel around it, and there would be sculptures showing different Devi, Devatas, showing the local heroes of the time. All that would be embellished. So I saw tiny ponds and I saw huge reservoirs, and all of them were embellished. So that was art. So even the artisan, the guy who comes and digs a well, is artistic. He can't just dig a well and go away. That job is incomplete. And if you read the 18th century works of the British people, they have found a text in which one of the guys is getting irritated with the local engineer he has got, the local builder who is building the bridge or something. He says they are first making a statue. I don't know why they're wasting a time. They're first making a murti, then they're doing the puja for it, and then they are going to start the construction. So this is it. This was our culture, where everything was spiritual. So there was always the material world was welded with the spiritual, and the whole mindset was like that, right? So when I contrast it with today's dams, today what we are building, it is just a functional thing. There is a dam that's doing its job, but there's no beauty in it, right? So even today, and it's not just India, even in Europe, if you go to Italy and all these places, that is before the onset of Christianity, you will find the pagan, what they call the pagans. At that time, the structures were full of beauty. And then we became, as we got more and more so-called civilized, we became very utilitarian, very functional. And it was like, why are we wasting this? Why are we making it so heavy? Let's make it lightweight. Let's finish the job in the shortest time. So those became the important considerations. So I feel that not being connected to the arts for so many years in our mainstream education has led to a whole degradation in our thinking, in our lifestyle, in our food, in everything, in our approach. So it is not just that we became less artistic, it has impacted every sphere of our lives, right? So in the older times, even a poor person, if you went to a poor person's house, it would still be decorated. So the outer walls would still have some motifs on it. And even today, if in the rural areas, when I go there, I see that it doesn't matter if they are poor. In fact, the poorer they are, the more they are interested in doing these things, the rangoli. Whereas today, you know, you will have the maid who will do the rangoli for you, even if you're, well-off family. So in a kind of, you've started outsourcing things. So that's leading to that disconnect with art, and it's also leading to deracination. And the other thing I noticed that being disconnected with art, how it manifests itself is when you go to the shopping areas, you'll find buildings with hundreds of signboards over them. Nobody has even thought that this is looking so ugly. So there are signboards, and then at night all the lights, tube lights go coming over there. And in fact, even in temples, a lot of people are saying that beautiful temples in South India, they'll find tube light over there, they'll find some switchboards over there in just near a murti. So, you know, that whole sense of aesthetics, that's gone. That's gone in a very bad way. And I feel that this is what we need to restore, that artistic way of looking at things, the aesthetic way of looking at things. Because, if you go back and look at how dramas were written, how plays were, how we used to have musical dramas, even in that, there was so much of detailing about what is the feeling that has to be evoked in the audience. So the Rasa Shastra, right, the Rasa theory, the Natya Shastra had all the Rasa theory. So, it's not just a straight telling of story of something happened, this happened, that happened. It was all about how are we going to make the audience feel what these actors are trying to portray. Is the audience going to feel it or not? So they will use music for it, they'll use dance, they'll use everything, they'll use voice modulation, they'll use clothes. Everything was used to create that feeling in the audience. So that rasa. And that rasa was, it permeates the whole of literature. So everything that you read, all the plays that are written, even ordinary prose, everything, the understanding of rasa had to be there. The sculptors had to know the rasa. That lovely story which was told just now about Markandeya, Rishi, who he said that to learn one art, you have to learn another art. For that, you have to learn another art. So until you learn something of all the arts, you won't get a picture of any of them. Actually, this is echoed even in Charaka Samhita, though it's not to do with arts, but actually it's to do with arts, because even in those days, even medicine, practice of medicine, there was no separation between science and math, or science and arts. So Charaka Samhita also says that if you want to know more about your own subject, then you also must study other subjects. So today what we call as interdisciplinary way of studying, that was already there. It's mentioned in so many texts. Now, the other thing is that all these rasas that are invoked when we are staging the plays and staging the musicals, ultimately it is supposed to lead to a state of ananda. So it was all about how, our natural state is to be in a state of bliss. So that this was well understood. So we all are naturally tending towards a blissful state. So we have to bring, but because of life's daily stresses, pressures, we tend to move away from it. So through the medium of drama, through the medium of music, we are trying to make the people get into that state of ananda. So at the end of it, when all the story is ending, everything has happened, you will find that if you're totally absorbed in the play, you will find that you're getting that ananda. So that is the way it was. Now look at today's movies. You can make out that they have absolutely no idea about Natya Shastra. They're not rooted in the civilization. So it will be some story they have picked up and they just want to show the story. This is what happened, a narrative style. And they don't care about what feelings you're left with. Whether you feel suicidal after seeing this, whether you want to, kill somebody after seeing that movie, they don't care. They got some story to tell, they'll just tell it. So they don't have that understanding of rasa, bhava. So this is the thing. We want more and more people to be educated in our indigenous system, the Indian knowledge systems, so that when we get that, then we'll find our roots. We'll know who we are, and we'll make authentic movies. So today, what we are doing is just bringing Hollywood stories, Hollywood style of editing, everything, the slick editing, right? Something happened, next moment something else happens. That is considered to be very good direction. That the next scene has no connection with the first scene. Is considered to be very good direction. But that is because somebody else is setting the whole the scene, the rules. Somebody is making the rules not from India about what is a good movie, what is a good song, and so we are simply blindly aping. And this is why when we get rooted in our arts, we study the way it is to be studied from the experts, the way Muniji gets the experts to come and teach, not somebody who is like, a regular teacher, but somebody who makes a living out of that, that art, that kala. When that person teaches, then the student is going to absorb not just the art, but the whole knowledge system associated with that art. And it's interesting that whichever art you take, it is complete in itself. I have realized that whichever art you take will ultimately lead you to the thought process behind the civilization. It will lead you to the Vedas, it will lead you to the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, and you will be connected. So any of these Bharatiya kalas will ultimately lead us to find ourselves, right? And I was also reflecting that, if, suppose somebody wants to become a space scientist, somebody wants to get into aviation, various other fields, right? It's not necessary that you will all the children will become artists. They'll get into different fields. But even then, having a grounding in the arts, a foundation in the arts, is going to help them. It's going to make them think differently. For example, when you are grounded in your arts, you will also be very close to the environment. You'll also be very close to nature. Lot of these themes where you are enacting a place, there'll be a lot of description of nature in that. The seasons will be described, the rivers will be described. Many of the characters themselves will be the Devi. Ganga is a river herself in that play. So you will become very close with nature. And so when you are rooted in these arts, even if you study engineering, I am hoping that you will think twice before you design something which is going to be very destructive of nature. So I feel that since we missed out on this kind of education, and we all just became engineers, we became architects, so we didn't think about cutting trees, we didn't think about cutting mountains, making roads through them. I'm not saying we should not be doing that, but we didn't think about the ethos of that, of our country, right? For example, the way the whole culture has become like climbing Mount Everest, mountaineering is a passion. People climb Mount Everest and they plant a flag there and say, yeah, I did it, and they take a selfie. But this is not our culture. In our culture, we do parikrama of the mountains. Nobody climbs Mount Kailash, right? Our culture is actually to do parikrama. If you see a beautiful reservoir, a lake, our culture is actually not to swim in that lake straight away. We'll do a parikrama. We'll first do a parikrama, take the permission, and then, that is the culture. So all that is gone. What I really want is that by studying in institutions like Vidyakshetra, I'm hoping that Vidyakshetra will become a role model. I have been pushing Vidyakshetra in every forum that I'm going to, international, national. When they say, oh, can it be done? Can we get back Gurukula? I said, yes, go to Vidyakshetra. I give them that example. Then they say, oh, Vidyakshetra is only one Gurukula. How we have so many people? How can we do it? I said, that Vidyakshetra, we have to multiply. Thousands of them we need. So first go and see Vidyakshetra, and then from there get the ideas, how we can replicate it, scale it up. So that has been my message. Because the kind of ideas that Muniji has, it is like we should have the framework. The framework should be Vedic. The framework should be of indigenous, our culture. But we can have different methodologies. We can use different methods to do it. So we don't have to stick to exactly like he says, you don't have to be under a tree and teaching under a tree. You can have a classroom. The earlier Gurukulas, yes, they were under trees. But now we are building and we are having classes. Yes, but they will be in touch with nature. We will make them do agriculture. We will make them go on trips, identify different plants growing in different regions. So this is the way to go. I feel that We follow what is in ancient India, the actual culture of the land, this deep-rooted civilization. But if changes are needed, and if technology needs to be used, we will use technology. Why not? But at the right age. So it is age appropriate. So right from day one, you can't give a phone to a child and allow it to surf anywhere. So you wait for the child's buddhi to develop, the internal mental compass to develop, and then you are allowing them to use. But then also keep monitoring it, and also keep warning them about where you will go. If you keep using the internet for everything, you're going to lose memory. That's another very important thing. So all these things come together when you study in a kala-based format, and you are natural, you are using your memory, you're using your brain, and then slowly you adapt to the modern education, the modern technologies available, tools available, and then think of how to solve today's problems. Because I believe that the solutions to today's problems also lie in the knowledge of ancient India, right? Whether you take medical problems, health problems, all of the crowded, the crowded planet that we are in, the excessive energy that we are using for everything. For everything, I feel that the answers lie in our own knowledge systems. So it's very important that we get rooted in our curriculum, a curriculum designed for us with our worldview, and so that we look at the world with our worldview. All the problems of today's world, if you look at them, have come from a foreign worldview, Western worldview. So whether it's climate change, global warming, garbage, excessive garbage. In Singapore, they generate, I think, 1 kg per day of garbage. 1 kg per day, per person. So that kind of lifestyle, how is it sustainable? This didn't come from our way of living, because our way of living was recycle. The sari gets old, I will use it, I'll cut it into pieces and use it for something for cleaning. Like that, we would keep recycling. And in fact, that is one of the kalas, by the way. One of the kalas, 64 kala, is that using some article of the house and turning it into a useful thing. That is also one of the kalas. So this is why I feel that going back to our ancient education system, finding out what is useful for today, but keeping the framework intact is what we have to do in the future. Because that is how we are going to revitalize ourselves. We have all got into a mold. There is mental health issues which are afflicting the whole world. But coming as I do from America, it is really serious. I have just met lots of students who none of them seem to be normal to me, because they are not able to focus on anything. They are not able to have attention on anything for very long. So because there are too many distractions, right? In today's world, there'll be every second there's a message coming on the phone. Something is happening in some part of the world. The news is coming to you. Gaza, this is happening. Somewhere this is happening. And you are worrying about that. Here there is going to be a band. All that news is coming. So it leads to some kind of stress, and you are not able to sit quietly and even watch a program. Even in the middle of the program, we'll try to check on people. We'll try to see what's happening. So for all this, I think the answer is this kind of education that Vidyakshetra is providing, and other Gurukulas as well. I have been to now a couple of other Gurukulas, which also I like very much, traditional Gurukulas. But in Vidyakshetra, I think what I really liked is that they use experiments. They use lot of well thought out experiments, science experiments, which make the children think. So they are not spoon-fed any theorems. They are not taught that, okay, this is the formula, now we'll do an experiment which will prove it. It's the reverse. First, they are made to do a problem, they're made to do an experiment, and then they're asked to think, what did you learn from this experiment? In fact, I was also tested and I couldn't answer when I went to Vidyakshetra. So this is the way they make them think, watch the night skies, and what was that? Come up with 20 questions after looking at the sky continuously every night for a month. I mean, that is mind-boggling. This is the kind of training that nobody is getting in the West, in any part of the world. So there is a lot of innovation that is coming here. So that makes me support Vidyakshetra wholeheartedly. And I hope that you will also create teachers, because you know the problem yourself, that the reason why we can't have thousands of Vidyakshetras right now is that we don't have enough teachers, acharyas. And I know that Muniji is thinking about this, and I hope that something happens so that within the next 10 years we have thousands of acharyas well equipped to teach all the various subjects with the Indian Bharatiya Drishti. So I was just thinking that when we are talking about creativity, how the arts bring out the creativity in us. Actually, this whole universe was one such act of creativity, right? It is said that Bhagwan was, in his Leela, he was so joyful, he was so happy, and then he created the Prithvi because of, in that state of joyfulness, right? So this is the kind of thing in a small way that we all have to do, that in that state of joyful bliss, we are creating something good, something beautiful, something new, something very, something useful for the world. So that's what I hope that Vidyakshetra will achieve. My full support is with you. I'm always with you. I'll find ways to see that you grow. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Sahana Ji. Thank you for bringing out the different forms of art, ornamental, intellectual, and utilitarian, and linking it to the livelihood and as well as for the direct realization and the beauty in it and the bliss in it. And when integrated with nature, it leads to the harmony with the entire world. And also contrasting the rich olden days with the impoverished current days, and how Vidyakshetra stands as a luminous star in its midst, reviving the grandeur, and how you are promoting Vidyakshetra in all the forums. Thank you very much. And the same statement that you mentioned in your, which is mentioned in a medicine treatise, Ekam Shastram Adhiyano no Vidyat Shastra Nishchayam Tasmat Bahushrita Shastram Vijaniyat Chikitsakaha. By the study of a single Shastra, one should not come to a conclusion, an inference. Therefore, a physician should study as many allied branches of Shastra as possible. This is not only for medicine, but also the Mimamsa of every science of India. A big round of applause for Sahana Ji.